Hey guys, Haku here. So a little bit of a different deck today. Today I want to talk about Solfachord. So Solfachord's got new support coming in Doom of Dimensions, and they're really broken cards. This video is not really going to be a discussion on what the cards do. I'm going to link those cards below in case you want to read them, but all three of these brand new cards have really broken effects, especially Solfachord Happiness, which is a not once per turn spell card that has three effects. One which is a double search and special summon, and the other is giving us an additional pendulum summon per turn. So this actually makes the deck really viable in the format. And both Primoria and Happiness, these two new cards, are now starters. So we got two starters, and also Solfachord is a really good extender. And on top of that, they are really good pendulum cards too, because Primoria is pendulum scale 0 and Solfachord is pendulum scale 9, and it also has an additional pendulum effect, which is an on resolution monster effect negation of a monster effect on field. And we know from Raziel Cross how powerful negating effects on resolution is, so they're both really strong cards. All three of them are really strong cards, and it definitely makes the deck viable. And because Solfachord Happiness, the spell card, is so broken, it makes the another card, Solfachord Gracia. This is an existing card in the Solfachord deck. It's a level 5 Solfachord monster that on summon can search a Solfachord spell or trap. Because of that, this card also becomes a bit more powerful in that it can search Happiness, which of course is now a new starter. And because it's a level 5, that naturally gives it some nice synergy with Canine. Because if you open any of the Canine Jokels or whatnot, then you can go Jokel, reveal the Gracia, special summon. Gracia can add the Happiness, and now you can overlay into a Canine Ripper. So you can see how it's a really powerful synergy to have. Obviously Canine can play pure, but I'm the type of player who really likes having a backup plan and a secondary engine, much like why I played White Forest with Fiendsmith. So if you prefer, playing pure Solfachord or playing Solfachord with other pendulum archetypes like the Z-Arc stuff, Supreme King stuff, then you are more than welcome to do that. But I personally really like kind of mixing meta engines with rogue decks, and this is a really cool synergy, and I want to explore it more. And this deck, of course, has been popping up here and there in the OCG as a rogue strategy and locals and stuff like that. Obviously, it's a new archetype from Doom of Dimensions, which has only been out for a few weeks, so there's not a lot of information on it. But the OCG, of course, has Electromite, which we don't have, an insanely powerful card because this is a pendulum deck. The TCG does not have Electromite. I think it will get unbanned, but this video is more so considering what we can do with Solfachord Canine without Electromite. So that's basically what this video is about. It's not really a deck profile too much or deck theory that much. It's more so what can we accomplish so far with the cards and just kind of putting it on your radar. And in a future video, we can talk more about card ratios and stuff like that. So without further ado, let's talk about Canine Solfachord and what I hope the deck can do. So there's a couple of different cards and combinations we want to talk about, but the main one, of course, is with our starters, Primoria or Happiness. And of course we need a discard. It can be any discard, so I'm going to represent it with this blank card here. So obviously without Electromite, I had to do some cooking on my own. So this is just something I came up with personally. I don't know if it's optimal, but it's a really cool strategy, and hopefully we can improve upon it. But for now, this is what I've come up with so far. So you're going to start with normal summon Primoria. Primoria is going to add the Happiness to our hand. Going to activate the Happiness, pitching our blank in order to add Gracia and Fancia, and then special summon the Gracia. The Gracia on summon is going to add the Elegance, and then we can activate the Elegance, placing our Fancia into our Face of Extra deck in order to scale Primoria and Solfachord. Next, we can link away our Gracia and Primoria on field in order to go into a Beyond the Pendulum, when we'll pay the 1200 life points to add Solfachord Cudia. Next, of course, we're going to perform Pendulum Summon because we are locked into doing that. And we're going to summon our Fancia and Primoria as well as the Cutia from hand. The important thing to note is we want to summon Primoria into the middle, depending on where you're looking at it. We want to keep the far side, the edge of the field, Fancia. We want to summon Fancia to the edge of the field. So in this example, Fancia is going to summon to the left here. And on summon, Cutia is going to activate to add Gracia, a second copy of Gracia from our deck to our hand. Fancia also has an on-field effect, which allows us to put a Coolia from our deck into our face of extra deck. So we're going to get that card into rotation. And next we're going to link away the Fancia and the Cutia into our Grand Solfachord Musicea. So that's why we wanted the Primoria over here, because we want the Musicea to summon on this side, towards the edge. And on summon of a Link monster, Primoria is going to activate to add back a Solfachord card from our graveyard or face up extra deck to our hand. In this case, it's going to be adding back the Happiness, because this card is not once per turn. Next, we're going to link away the Beyond the Pendulum and the Primoria. When we're linked into the Coolia, so we're going to play this card in the other side of the board, whatever the other EMZ is, so that we have more link arrows to work with. So here, we're going to activate Happiness, using its second effect to give us an additional Pendulum Summon per turn. And now we're going to Pendulum Summon the Gracia from our hand to this side of the field, and then a Fancia and Gracia from our face of extra deck to the two zones the Coolia points to. Now we do have more monsters, so we could summon to this zone as well, but however, Coolia is an Omni-Negate that requires us to summon an odd pendulum scale to the zone it points to, so we do want to keep this zone free if possible, and we don't really need the extra body at the current time. So on Pendulum Summon, we're going to have a few trigger effects. We have Musica Chainlink 1 and Primoria Chainlink 2 to bounce itself back to hand. Musicea is when we Pendulum Summon a Solfachord monster, we can target one of them and add the corresponding level of its Pendulum scale to our hand. So we're going to target the Fancia, which is Pendulum Scale 5. So that will allow us to add a level 5 Solfachord monster from deck to hand. Getting our third Gracia, so we have all three Gracias in rotation now. Next, we're going to overlay our two Gracias on the field, which are both level 5s, into K9 Ripper, which is a generic level 5. We're going to activate the effect of Ripper to add a K9 Jokul to our hand. Now this Gracia is in the graveyard instead of the extra monster zone, which is slightly important, because for our next play, we're going to link away the Musica and the Fancia into Exceed the Pendulum, and we're going to trigger its effect on summon to add a monster from our face-up extra deck to our hand. So we can add the Coolia that we put there earlier. So you can see the Primoria bounce into hand is not only follow-up for us, it also frees up this slot so we can play the Coolia into that zone, which now gives us an extra interrupt, because when we summon this card to the field, while it's on the field, it can also pop a card based on the Pendulum scale here, which is level 9, so it can pop a monster with 2700 or less attack by chaining to it, kind of like a detonator in a way. And this is Pendulum Scale 1, this is Pendulum Scale 9, so we can use Exceed the Pendulum second effect to summon back a Pendulum monster from our hand or from our graveyard. So the Gracia being in graveyard here, thanks to the Ripper, is actually kind of nice, because now it serves as a sort of extender for this Exceed the Pendulum. Now we can link away the Exceed the Pendulum and the Solfachord Gracia in order to summon Unchained Abomination. Now, you can probably guess why this is part of our end board, but if you don't, you'll see shortly. So next, we're going to activate the Jokul from hand to summon itself and the Gracia from our hand. And then we're going to use the effect of Jokul to add a Lantern to our hand. We're going to link away the Gracia and the Jokul to go into IP Masquerena. And then we're going to activate the effect of Lantern in hand to summon itself to the field and also the Jokul from graveyard. Then we're going to activate the effect of Lantern on field to add a case for K9 to our hand. And then we're going to exceed or overlay these two cards into Valon, the Sky Blaster. This can be any rank 5, it doesn't have to be Valon. I just like Valon here because if we book something with Valon, then when we IP Masquerena, we can use the Valon, and then when Valon goes to graveyard, it can pop the set card. So it's got some nice synergy, so I like this card. Obviously, you can also do Similar stuff with Nash Knight, so you can suck up a card and then send it to graveyard with IP Masquerade in that way. But yeah, so this is our end board. Almost. We're going to activate the Case for Canine, which will add the Azunatan, and then we're going to proceed to our end phase. Unchained Abomination during the end phase can pop a card on the field. It can pop our own cards as well, so we're going to pop the Case for Canine, which will trigger to set Canine Force Release to the field. So this is our sort of end board that we're passing with. We have the 3 interruptions with the 3 Solfachord cards. So we have an Omnigate with Kulia, the Link Kulia, and then the Pendulum Kulia will allow us to pop a card. And then we have Solfachia, which can pop itself to negate an effect of a monster on field during resolution. So it's a really powerful on-resolution effect negation. That's already 3 interruptions. If we pop a card on the field, either with the Kulia or with the Forced Release, the Unchained Abomination can also additionally pop a card on the field, so that will be another interruption. And then during the end phase, it will also pop a card on the field, so that's 2 interruptions with this one card. That puts us up to 5 interruptions already. We have the Forced Release to pop a card, putting us at 6 interruptions. We have the Ripper and the Valon, which are 7 and 8 interruptions respectively. We have IP Masquerade into SP, which is 9 interruptions. SP Little Knight's effects to Banish, which is 10 interruptions. And then the card we upgrade into either Werewolf or the other canine monster, Canine Jax, which is also new in the upcoming Doom of Dimensions, puts us up to, what is that, 10 interruptions, 11 interruptions or something like that. And then that's not even counting the Azuna in our hand. After we IP Masquerena, we'll have the SP Little Knight, and the SP Little Knight, after it banishes, it will also free up 2 slots, because we gotta remember we are summoning something here, right, for the stone. So we have this many bodies. We're gonna exceed all these ways all the way into SP Little Knight, and then we're gonna activate SP Little Knight's effect to banish. So then that will give us the 3 slots here. So now we can Azuna send Lupus overlay into another interruption. So that's a ton of interruptions. You can see how this deck functions, the sort of like goal with this deck, and the sort of cool synergy with Unchained Abomination to pop our own cards, because obviously in the TCG we don't have Electromite. Otherwise, summoning Electromite to pop the Case for Canine is also a really cool interaction to have. So that's sort of like the limit, the ceiling this deck can hope to reach, and hopefully that was something interesting and informative and cool to see how Solfachord and Canine sort of interacts with each other. In the next video, we can talk more about like better lines that can play through other hand traps, maybe some other combo lines, like what do you do when you open Jokul plus Gracia, you know? Or what do you do when you open Happiness? Or what do you do when you open a combination of cards? Like, for example, you know, like Gracia by itself is not a starter because you can't just summon Gracia from hand. However, if you have Gracia plus Jokul, now you can, right? Solfachia plus Gracia, because Solfachia can also summon a card from hand, so this is also a combo. And then of course, like, anytime you have a card that requires Solfachia, now all of a sudden Cudia becomes part of the combo as well, right? So like if you had Gracia plus Cudia, this is also a combo because you can normal summon the Cudia, Cudia adds Solfachia, Solfachia summon itself, Solfachia effect to summon the Gracia from hand, and then the Gracia can add. So you can kind of see how like this deck has like weird like 2 card synergies. So there's only like 2 true 1 card combo cards. So it's going to be the Primoria and the Happiness. So there's only like 6 1 card combos that you can play. However, there's a lot of 2 card combos, as you can see. So that's sort of how the deck balances out. And of course, you know, as always, like, because consistency is a really important thing in making meta decks viable, the other really cool options for, you know, if you want more consistency, there's always Diviner of the Heralds, sending a Trias Hierarchia which can then tribute the Diviner, and then Diviner can summon a level 2 or lower fairy. Primoria is a level 1 fairy, so that's really important. And that makes Diviner also a 1-card starter. And obviously, because it's a level 1 monster, we can also use 1 for 1. You know, as a starter. And then because this monster has 0 attack, we can also use Piri Raise Map, which is a card that Yummy has been using as a starter as well. So, you know, there's a lot of options for starters and getting to our starters. There's also a hidden option. Let's see if I can find it, if I have it among my cards. One that, you know, the OCG doesn't have access to is the Dawn Angel Cambi. The Dawn Angel Cambi is a TCG exclusive card. For those of you who don't know what this does, if you control no monsters or only fairies, you can special summon it from hand, and then you can tribute itself and any other fairies on field to summon a fairy from deck equal to that level of monsters you tributed or lower. So with Cambi by itself, it can tribute itself. It's a level 1, so then it can summon the Primoria, so that becomes a 1-card combo, sort of. The caveat with Cambi is that you are locked into fairies for the rest of the turn. However, there are still really strong fairy options. Obviously, like all the Solfachord Omnigate stuff is fairies, but you know what else is a fairy? That we can get into? We can go into Herald of Mirage Light for a spell and trap negate. And for rank 5s, we have, of course, Artifact Durandal, which is not like a great interruption, but it's still a pretty decent interruption into the meta because when your opponent activates a monster effect in hand, you can then activate Durandal to shuffle it back into deck so then it can't summon itself or do whatever. And then, of course, worst case scenario, number 67, Paradise Smashers, is also a fairy for some reason, which we can summon. More on that later if people are interested. Obviously, I think this card will get banned by that time, but, you know, it's an option that's there. So those are, you know, these are some other 1-card combo starter options if we want to consider. I'm not really sure about the ratios or stuff like that because I haven't done a lot of intensive research, but those are some of the options so far that I've come up with. So hopefully you've learned something. Solfachord's a really cool deck, and the other thing that TCG has, of course, that the OCG doesn't have, is that we have Herald of Orange Light at 3. I think this is an insanely powerful card, especially in this deck, which for a lot of the times we can guarantee a fairy back in hand because the Primoria can always bounce itself back to hand from our Pendulum Scale. So that makes this card almost always live in almost all of our hands for opponent's turn, and this card is just crazy. The OCG may have Electromite, but we have Orange Light at 3. So just something to consider. I think this deck has some wheels. I mean, it's not going to be a tier 1 strategy by any means, but it's definitely a contender for a solid rogue strategy. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.